Hello everyone. Today I'm going to be covering the considerations and constraints for running VMware Horizon on VMware Cloud on AWS. My name's Dean Lewis and I work as a technical account manager at VMware. You can contact me through my blog, beeducate.co.uk, and also on Twitter, SaintDLE. As there's going to be a lot of information we're going to go through in the next 15 minutes for this recording. You can grab all this by going to the short link theexpert.me/VMC-Horizon, and I'll show these links at the end again as well. Just a quick overview of the agenda. Essentially, we're going to be looking at what Horizon is, what's special about it when it runs on VMC, talk about those considerations and constraints throughout, and then finish off on a final summary as you'd expect. Okay, so first and foremost, I'd like to start with Horizon 7 running on top of VMware Cloud and AWS is not desktop as a service. For those of you who may not be familiar with the VMC offering, it is a VMware managed service. We run the underlying vSphere platform for you, and you consume it by bringing your own virtual machines to the mix. By running Horizon 7 or 8, also known as 2006, which has just been recently announced, as an IaaS model, it means you bring the platform or the virtual machines onto VMC and you run it yourself. So this will be self-managed, you are the tenant. This is in contrast to our Horizon Cloud offering, which is available on IBM SoftLayer and in Azure as well, which is a managed service from the Horizon platform itself. If you are using the Horizon Cloud platform, you will bring your virtual machine images and you will ask to deploy those images into a pool, which can be used by your users. But you will not have to manage the Horizon platform itself. Today, we're only going to be talking about running the IaaS model of running the IaaS components on VMC itself. Just also want to make a quick note. In VMware Horizon, we also support the cloud architecture. The reason why this is important is typically a lot of customers looking at running Horizon in VMC today already run Horizon in their on-prem data centers. You can extend your Horizon environment by using cloud architecture into the environments running in VMC and running in your on-prem vSphere environment. That creates a flexible, highly available platform. You will have to keep the platforms in sync with one another from a version and control point of view. But other than that, it's the exact same kind of architecture and references you'd be looking for to running cloud architecture if you were keeping all of your environments the same on-prem, but maybe between different data centers. Okay, so I'd like to allude to what is the big difference from a usability point of view for Horizon once it's stood up and running the VMC. And the answer is not much. It's a small little tick box. When you connect your vCenter server to tell the Horizon environment where it can deploy its resources to the platform, you tick the little box that highlights its VMware Cloud and AWS as highlighted by the big red arrow. And this lets the Horizon environment know that there is a limited RBAC model in place as part of the VMC platform because it is a partly managed service by VMware. I'd also like to note that there are some feature support that you need to take into consideration as well. So for example, we don't support view composer linked clones in VMC. We don't support running security servers, which are the Windows-based Horizon servers used in your DMZ. It's preferred to use the Unified Access Gateway. And also there's no ability to use things like vVols, for example. This isn't applicable for VMware Cloud and AWS because we provide you a single vSAN workload data store. vRealize for Horizon monitoring. We don't actively support it. It can be granted on an individual basis. Speak to your Horizon SME that you're aligned to if you're looking into running a Horizon project. And then finally, the just-in-time services, the JMP servers, you can use them in the Horizon Cloud Console instead of running them yourself as well. But again, some of this information as we start to release and ramp up with the GA dates for Horizon 8 will once again change again. So for example, just going back to the lack of linked clones, if you were deploying the latest version of Horizon, we only support instant clones anyway, so it's not as much as a consideration going forward. On our cloud.vmware.com website, we do have a reference architecture that takes you through the minimal viable product to start building your Horizon services in VMC. So let's look at some of the typical considerations and constraints. So the first one is always about your underlying platform. Identity management is always going to be key. Proximity to your Active Directory. So if you don't run any VMC services today and you're looking at this being your first foray, you need to consider at least a read-only domain controller stretching from your private or on-prem data centers into VMC. And ensure that you configure sites and services correctly within Active Directory so that when users are authenticating to any services running in VMware Cloud and AWS, it authenticates against the local domain controller and doesn't go across your VPN or WAN links back to your on-prem data centers. File shares is always the biggest one because files access is your end user experience for most users when they log on. They want to run Word documents, PowerPoint presentations, images that they may have edited. So again, proximity of these file shares to the user's desktop running VMware Cloud AWS is key. For the user documents, consider using technology such as Microsoft Distributed File Services if you are stretching between your on-prem environment to VMC. We also support native services within Amazon that you can bring across into the VMC environment as well, in particular the Amazon FX for Windows File Server service. So this is where you would spin up a Windows server as an EC2 instance, add the Amazon FX technology on top of it, and then use it to host the file shares back into your SDVC. User profiles. I'm pretty sure for those of you that have been sysadmins for many years, user profiles have been the bane of your life as much as they have been for myself. Consider using technologies such as user profile management. So for VMware, that would be our Dynamic Environment Manager, previously named UEM, where you can dynamically build configurations for users on the fly as they log into the systems. This minimizes the need for GPOs and replication, and also as well can give the user the feeling of persistence, especially in non-persistent desktop builds where those desktops may be deleted when users log out. We also do support user profile context systems such as Microsoft FX Logic, which is a cool technology which kind of containerizes profiles as well. However, that's a little bit newer to the market and may take a little bit more changes in your environment to get up and running so that it works as you need it to. And then finally, one of the big things for me is image management. So at the moment, Horizon doesn't support the use of content libraries, which is using content libraries, you can synchronize images between environments. So unfortunately, there is going to be some manual parts to how you operate the data operations and push updates out into your pools as well. So you need to consider about running those golden images. Do you run separate images in your on-prem environment and in VMC? And if so, how do you update them in lockstep? So that's going to be more about how you control your standard operating procedures for the time being. And again, image management today, I know that it is going to be one of those things that's a little bit tricky for yourselves, but by feeding back how you'd like this to work to your VMware SMEs as well really helps because we can work with our engineering departments to meet your needs. So for me, the biggest considerations and constraints when running in VMC to an on-prem platform is the networking and security side. When running Horizon, as you've kind of already noticed, we've not really talked about in the Horizon admin console itself, for example, because everything kind of feels and looks the same. But the networking and security piece is really key. So you're going to have to create yourself some LAN and DMZ segments in the VMC console. As you can see by the screenshot that I have for my test environment, I created a DMZ, a network to run my RDS farm, which is linked to Horizon, and then also a load balance segment as well. Moving on to load balancing, VMC is a bring your own load balance environment. So although the underlying platform uses NSXT, the load balancing functionality isn't exposed to the end user. So what options are available? You could use things like AWS Route 53, which is fantastic, especially if you want to use the cloud pod architecture. You could use the AWS Elastic Load Balancer, so again, leveraging those native services of AWS as the diagram shows here at the moment. But you also need to consider the traffic. So the user will be terminating from the public internet to those native services, and then will need to be passed from that VPC of those native services into your VMware SDDC. Or you can bring a load balancer directly to the SDDC within VMC itself, such as Avi Networks, also now renamed NSX Advanced Load Balancer. The difference being here in the second screenshot is that that traffic will terminate on the compute gateway, as all of your other traffic will within the SDDC, and then the load balancing function is going to happen in your environment. That's also very obvious, but some of the considerations you need to take there is by running them virtual machines on your platform, you're consuming the compute and storage of the SDDC, whereas you may not have those considerations if you're running the native services within AWS. And then finally, you're obviously going to be running desktops up in the environment, and typically nowadays a lot of people go down the non-persistent route, which also means using DHCP. In VMC, the options are very limited. DHCP is available as a relay now, and for an environment, especially where you're looking at running hundreds or thousands of desktops, it's recommended to set up a DHCP on a server running in VMC. Run it just on the subnets that you need, but it also gives you more granular control. For the also moving on for the security side of it, we have two types of firewall. So we have the gateway firewall, which looks after north and south traffic. So that's everything entering and leaving clusters or the SEC to the outside world. And then we have the distributed firewall. So this is your east to west traffic or microsegmentation services you've probably heard from the NSX technology, protecting communications between virtual machines. You should see me highlighting that there at the moment. You need to use the distributed firewall to create a DMZ for your UAG services and load balance services. So what does that look like in VMC? In my environment, I created a section. I've put all of my rules going back and forth between my UAGs to the various components of the Horizon platform, so such as my connection brokers, my load balancers. And at the end, it's very simple. I've created two rules. So I block any traffic which hasn't already been allowed going to my UAGs, and then finally deny any traffic going from my UAGs to anything else in my environment. This creates a DMZ. If I don't add these deny rules in, then because I'm using routed networks in VMC, my UAGs will be open to route around my network. One of the things I'd also recommend that you do is look at vRealize Login Site Cloud. You get a limited service offering as part of being a VMware Cloud and AWS user, and you can monitor your NSXT firewall logs up to 1 gig of logs per day, and these are easily sent to Login Site as built in as part of the service by just clicking the option to enable logs on your firewall rules. And here we can just kind of see in this diagram, I'm querying on the NSXT firewall, and then we can just see some traffic which has been allowed and disallowed through the environment. Okay, so let's wrap up with some final considerations. And again, I will share the links at the end of this presentation because I know I've shared a lot of information so far. Consider your use case. A lot of customers are looking at the data center evacuations being one of the use cases. You may already have an on-prem Horizon environment running on aging hardware. So do you want to use cloud pod architecture to give the user a seamless interface between consuming on-prem resources and resources in VMC? Or will you run them as separate Horizon instances? So again, what versions you run your Horizon environments will help also make that decision. What are your constraints when building this environment? So think about sizing your Horizon environment. How many users are you going to need to support? Then consider the maximums in terms of soft limits and hard limits. How many hosts per cluster can you have within your SDDC? How many clusters per SDDC? And what regions do you need to operate in? Desktop to host ratio is always a key thing for VMC. So do your users run intense workloads such as multi-monitor setups? If the answer is yes, you're going to get less desktops to host ratio, which then pushes up the numbers of clusters that you need. And then finally, networking. So what's your connectivity into VMC? Are you using things like IPsec VPNs, which will add an overhead into your traffic? Or are you using the AWS Direct Connect technology, which is faster links, dedicated, but also come at a high cost? And some of the resolutions for this. So you could scale out across multiple SDDCs to help with cluster limits, desktop to host ratios, and also as well splitting out maybe that traffic if you're using IPsec VPNs across different tunnels and different connection endpoints as well. If you were to do this across multiple SDCs, as we can see up here in this diagram, then you can also use CloudPod architecture just in VMC to link these Horizon environments together to give you a seamless experience. Okay, thank you very much, everyone, for this whirlwind tour of Horizon on VMC. Again, you can find all of the links at theexpert.me/VMC-Horizon, or you could also scan the QR code in the top right-hand corner. Thank you very much.